The Dice Tower is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. And by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff, in stock at CoolStuffInc.com. The Dice Tower, episode 514.
Party of 5.
Welcome to The Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, Tom and I are joined by Tony McRee from Rolling Dice and Taking Names to discuss some recent games played, present a tale of board gaming horror, and answer a bunch of questions from one listener. Plus, Geoff talks about getting the Yips, and we close the show by gathering our top 10 games to play with 5 players. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Matthew Fox to my Scott Wolf, Tom Vassell.
You know, I never actually watched that show. I don't think I've seen a single episode.
I didn't either. I had to research it, but I mean, I couldn't let that particular reference drop.
Yeah, you're getting lazier, really, is what it is, I think. But see, I don't know what to say here, because when you're not lazy, then I'm like, what are you talking about? So, so I complain no matter which way you do it, apparently, so I'll stop. Great reference, Eric.
Yay! Good job, team.
Folks, if you're tuning in for the first time ever in the history of board gaming, my name is Tom Vassell.
Hi there, I'm Eric Summerer.
And today we are joined by a third co-host from Rolling Dice and Taking Names. Tony, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom, Eric, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a dream. And pinch me so I can wake up from this nightmare.
Nightmare.
Yes, I noticed how you twisted that on your end there. We're glad. Thank you. So Tony McRee is one of 2 co-hosts of Rolling Dice and Taking Names. I think you guys have been going for 4 years now, or is it 3?
We've been 4.5 years. You invited us on in December to be part of Rolling Dice Taking Names, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. And you're absolutely right. I am a co-host. Marty is my other host, and I'm also known as the other guy because that is what your nemesis called me when he was talking about me. He couldn't remember my name. And he goes, that other guy. And it has stuck for 3.5 years now.
Well, we never call you the other guy.
I know, but Bonacore does. I mean, how hard is it?
Oh, that nemesis. I have a lot.
Oh, well, number one
You have to be more specific.
Well, we're very sorry that we did not see you last week, but we do have to quickly pause here and mention, everybody, thank you for coming to Dice Tower Con. Easily the best convention I've ever been to.
It was pretty impressive, yes.
I mean, it wasn't perfect because there's no such thing as a perfect con, but it came pretty close.
Yeah, I had a great time. I was worried about the increase in people. That's a lot of logistical jumps that needed to be made, a lot of hoops to jump through. But the staff was fantastic. The volunteers, registration went like a dream. There were no hiccups, as far as I could tell, related to the increase in size of the convention. It was great.
Yeah, one of the things that was impressive was how quickly registration went through. It was an extremely long line, like you might see at other conventions such as Origins and, so on and so forth. But it was done within an hour. People actually waited in line longer who came earlier than people who just showed up and got in line. Because some people were there 2 hours early.
Yeah.
But for the people who were early, there was free breakfast.
There was.
Like a free continental breakfast. There was pastries and sandwiches and things like that.
That's one way to keep the crowd happy, is to give them food.
It worked for me. I was pretty happy. Of course, I wasn't standing in line either, so there was that.
Sure.
But we're not going to go into too much detail. We might do a more of a recap in a future episode because Eric and I, in a future episode, Eric and I are going to talk about a mega game that we played there.
Oh boy, that was interesting.
We never played a mega game before. Neither I don't think you did either. Have you?
No, I don't think so. Not on this scale, no.
Tony, have you ever been in a mega game?
No, because I'm not even sure what a mega game is here.
A mega game it's basically a live-action role-playing game, but it's more of like, they're usually along a political line. It's actually, it's almost like a giant board game that's made up of several parts. And like you have to, in our game, there was 8 teams and 6 people on each team. and each person on the team was doing something different, playing a different kind of game, but all those games affected each other. But at the same time, you could try almost anything in this game, and if the people running it allowed it, it might happen.
Yeah.
So we were like fighting for control of a planet, but at the same time, aliens were showing up, and we played a very, very short version, which was 3 hours.
Okay, and do they normally go like 6-8 hours? Is that also helping?
Yeah,
okay, wow.
Like the shorter ones are usually 4 hours, but they can go up to 8 hours easily. And after playing it, I can see how that happened because I barely noticed the time going by.
Yeah, it flew by.
Oh, man, sounds incredible.
It is. My biggest caveat with it, and again, we'll go into more detail later, is just that it kind of bothers me to use up that much convention time to play one. Right? I'm at a convention, I'm having fun, and it's like, oh, I must be in this mega game. That's going to take up a good chunk of my time.
Yeah, but where else are you going to do that sort of thing?
Well, see, I think I would actually travel to go to one of these. Let's say there was a mega game that was a few hours from my house or whatever. I would actually travel there and go play it on a Saturday. But maybe I'll get involved in one again. I really did have a good time doing it.
It was neat.
But, folks, Dice Tower Con is now over. So we turn our sights on the biggest con of all, and that is Gen Con.
Oh, boy.
So we have a Gen Con live show, and at that show, there's going to be some pretty interesting things. We're not going to spoil any of it, actually, but we can tell you that some companies will be there and making some announcements, and the Dice Tower itself is going to be making 2 major announcements there. So you'll want to show up and see those, and just see all the guys live, and just come on out for that. But there is a ticketed event. We had 1,200 tickets. There are now less than 200 left.
Oh, my.
So Eric, you get to once again talk to 1,000 people.
I'm excited.
And so there's that coming up, but you need to go to Gen Con and sign up for those. And if you want to come to Gen Con, it may be too late for that because Gen Con has sold out.
Wow.
At least of the 4-day tickets.
Yes, and they're talking about Saturday being sold out by the time you hear this probably as well.
Man, how many people do you think sold out is, guys?
I mean, 70,000, 80,000. I mean, they've expanded. Did they continue to expand over to Lucas Oil Field with moving the RPG stuff over there? I haven't. See, this is the first time I've been back to Gen Con since 2012. We are so excited for both Marty and I to be there. And
wow.
I mean, the last time I was there, it was so memorable to me. And Tom, you made it for me, and I appreciate it. That was an amazing adventure for me. So it's only taken me 5 years to get back. So I'm really excited.
Okay, I'm trying to think. That was the show. That was the first live show where we did singing.
I don't know what it was. I just remember it from Eldritch Horror was introduced by Fantasy Flight, and
that's right.
And you and I think it was Z and Rob Searing, and I'm not sure if Eric was sitting there, and we tried to take on Cthulhu, and you said, "Oh, take a chance, McRee," and I took a chance, and we quickly lost the game. I think you did that so that we could stop playing.
No, I was actually having a good time, but it was not the best environment for playing a game. It was in that dark restaurant area, and those areas are just terrible to play games, and yet I play so many Gen Con games in those areas. But yeah, that was I really like Eldritch Horror. We learned in that game that you shouldn't play with 6 players, I think.
No,
we also learned that we should be like, let's take on Cthulhu, and we don't care. Maybe that was just me who said that.
And then we learned that Cthulhu had a daughter, and we were learning a lot that night, and it was just
that's
amazing.
Right. I had never known that there was some familial things going on with Cthulhu, so I learned a lot. Yeah, I do remember that. So now that you've come back, you've caused it to overflow. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. And like you originally asked, what do I think? 70,000. I just can't imagine. I mean, is 100 a sellout? What? I mean, you always hear the turnstiles, but
I'm going to guess 70. I'm going to guess 70.
70 sounds right.
That bigger than last year, and having been there last year, it feels like it was pushing at that capacity anyway.
Yeah. I'm a little worried knowing that it's sold out about the crowds this year. It was already getting a little crushy. I think there's going to be some stress in the hall this year.
Well, we're going to have a booth there, and we'll have promos at our booth. But even if you just want to come by and say hi, we'll be posting a schedule of who's going to be at the booth and when, so you can know when to come by. And I believe the Rolling Dice and Taking Names guys will sign up for a slot and be there at some point. So you'll be able to come by and say hi to them and throw moon pies at them. Okay, I'll give a free promo card to anyone who hits them with a moon pie.
Oh, so are you still holding a grudge from the BGG con where we came on stage and were tossing moon pies at your crowd? Is that what I'm hearing here?
No, I'm not holding a grudge. I just see you guys throw these at people a lot, and I feel like it should be reciprocated. That's all.
Hey, I'll take any free food, especially at Gen Con. I mean, my goodness. I mean, just being able to move from the front door to the back is probably going to take you through lunch if there's over 70,000 people there. Oh, I can't imagine, guys. I can't imagine.
I think I can, actually. So we'll have to wait and see. But if you want to go on a much less crowded convention.
Slightly less crowded, yeah.
There's still time. Come on the Dice Tower Cruise. Go to dicetowercruise.com, sign up for it. Folks, I cannot emphasize much. If you just want to go and play games in the most relaxing environment you can imagine. I mean, really, it's like, I'm done with this game. Should I just go grab some food for free? I think I will. Or you can play a game on the side of the ship and just watch the waves go by. Or if the waves bother you, you can play inside. I mean, and we got some nice new rooms to play games in this year. And you're going to get free games. We have confirmed that you will get at least, we have several publishers coming in. They're all going to put something in a bag. But I know from Arcane Wonders, you're going to get 3 games, Royals, Speechless, and the expansion for Sheriff of Nottingham.
Whoa.
That's right. So,
wow.
Sign up for that. Go to dicetowercruise.com. Get it now before they're gone.
And Tom, do you mind if I interject here a little bit on cruises? I love to cruise. And unfortunately, I've used up all my vacation this year, or I would be heavily looking into this. You are hitting probably one of the most beautiful areas and going to Cozumel on this cruise. Incredible.
Okay, I agree. We went there last year. It was really fun. What's amazing there? What should we do?
If you're tired of playing board games, which I can't imagine, and when you want to do an excursion, did you ever do Rio Secreto?
No, I just rode a horse around town. That's it.
Well, you have to take the river taxi from Cozumel over to Rio Secreto, and it is a hike through the caves, and this is the aquifer underneath the Cozumel area, or actually on the land there, and they turn off the lights and you can float. It's amazing. If the people that are going on this are interested in an excursion like this, we did Rio Secreto, and it was truly a one-in-a-lifetime adventure. And, I mean, National Geographic is one of the sponsors of it, so you get these wetsuits. Oh, it's so gorgeous. So if you get a chance, Tom, take Eric over there and just don't let him float away and be lost in a cave, but it would be so cool to hear his voice boom through that cave out there.
Are you plotting to get me lost in a cave?
No, I wouldn't say that. I said don't lose you.
Oh, okay.
Well, if you had anything to do with the scorpion thing, Eric, then yes.
I'm sorry you found a scorpion in your drawer, Tom. I had nothing to do with it.
Do you know how much life I lost in that moment?
12 hit points?
Man, spiders scare me enough, right? And so I opened my drawer, and I was like, I was getting my Mio out to put in my water to drink to be healthy. And I was like, oh, yeah, there's one of my rubber bugs. And I was like, wait a minute. I don't have any rubber bugs at this house. So I took the whole drawer. First, I tried to get my daughters to get rid of it. They would not. So I took the whole drawer and threw it outside. And finally, the scorpion started walking back towards the house. And I was like, no. So he is murderized.
Oh.
And then I went and bought Scorpion Killer and sprayed the whole outside of the house. And I'm thinking about buying another one.
House?
And, it's the new studio. My house is fine. I think they kill I think cats die when they get near our neighborhood. Just because of the amount of bug spray they use. But the new studio has more wildlife near it. But anyway, Tony, I don't think I'm going to take Eric on such an excursion when my wife is around. I probably would take her instead.
Oh, she will absolutely love it. Absolutely love it.
Well, we will see. I do not know yet what I'm doing. Those excursions are often quite expensive, and I'm usually like, woohoo, everything on the cruise ship's free. Why would I pay more money?
Yeah.
But Eric will do it because he lost the Amazing Race, and he's still bitter.
I'm a little bitter. Plus, I'll have my wife with me, and she'll want to explore something, so we'll figure that out.
We'll double date. All right.
There you go.
So that is events coming up. But I know you folks are here to hear about games, so let me tell you about a super exciting game that I played a near final version of, and that's Thunderstone Quest.
Ooh.
Thunderstone Quest is essentially Thunderstone 3. There was Thunderstone, Thunderstone Advance, and this is Thunderstone Quest. It is pretty close to the same system. If you've played one, you will easily understand how to play this new one. It's a deck builder. And in this deck builder, you are collecting weapons and different heroes, and then going into a dungeon and fighting monsters to get points. Have you ever played, Eric, you played Thunderstone, I'm sure.
Yes.
Tony, have you played Thunderstone?
I have played Thunderstone. I have Thunderstone Advance. Haven't gotten it to the table. It's on the shelf of shame, but I love Thunderstone. Love that game.
Right. Well, this really improves in a lot of things on Thunderstone. First of all, when you go to the village action, that's where you go buy cards. You now have kind of like a worker, a hero that you place in a spot in the village, and that will give you something that you can do. You can always buy, but like if you go to one spot, you can buy tokens that give you light in the dungeon, or that give you health to heal wounds, or different things that you can buy, tokens. Another spot lets you hire heroes. You can hire 2 heroes instead of just one. Another spot lets you upgrade 2 heroes instead of one. There's another spot that lets you recharge, where you heal a wound and then put cards on top of your deck and basically prepare to whoop up on a monster next turn. When you go to the dungeon now, you're fighting monsters, and when you fight a monster and you defeat it, instead of that monster card going into your deck, now it gives you victory points. And you can spend those victory points to level up your heroes, or you might want to keep them because, well, they're victory points.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an interesting thing, but you can really level up quickly in this game. When you go out to fight, you can decide to go out to the wilderness instead of a dungeon and fight like a low-level monster. And if you beat him, you can transform one of your 0 heroes into a level 1 hero. So you can get these level 1 heroes pretty quickly. But what I really like about the game is sometimes when you fight a monster, you get a treasure. And then you just draw off this treasure deck. And it's all sorts of cards. Sometimes it gives you some experience points. Sometimes it gives you some tokens, but sometimes it's a unique item. It's a single card that only you have in your deck. So like on my first game, I got a treasure, and I got a sword called Lightbringer, which was a good sword. It was a neat weapon to have, but I'm the only person in the game who has it. And I really like that. It gives the game more of a thematic flavor. And each person gets a quest at the beginning of the game. And if you ever manage to accomplish that quest, then it will give you a reward. So like, my quest was like be wounded, and then beat a level 2 monster with a sword. Or I forget what the exact thing was, but I did it. They're not that difficult to pull off, but you gotta like set it up to pull them off. And then I got a werewolf join my party. So I have a werewolf card in my deck that's 10 power, which is insane. But every time you use him, he also eats one of your other guys who comes with him. But I loved it. Having things like that to make your deck more unique than others takes this from being a very Euroized Dominion. Dominion is a great game. I really love it. But everyone has the same things, and everyone can buy the same things. Everyone has the same opportunities. In Thunderstone, the fact that you're different allows you to it just feels like you're your own adventuring party. You each have a different guild, which gives a special power and things. And yet it's not that much more complex than Advanced because they streamlined a lot of things down. When you get wounds, they don't go in your deck anymore. Instead, they go on this track in front of you. And the more wounds you have, the fewer cards you draw each turn.
Okay.
And so you're trying to get rid of your wounds so that you can, draw more cards. And that's a very simple thing to do. The whole thing just... It really ramps up quickly. That's what I didn't like about the original Thunderstone was you had to play for a really long time before you could really wail on monsters. Here you're just whomping on them right away. And then eventually a big boss monster shows up and everyone whomps on him. And you want to hit him as hard as you can to get the most points that you can. And then you add up your points and one person wins. I really like it. I mean, Thunderstone has always been one of my favorite games anyway. This one just, I think, does it best. It's now... No one's going to call it a clone of Dominion anymore. That's Thunderstone Quest.
So one element that distinguished the transition from Thunderstone to Thunderstone Advance is that you could still technically use the cards from the original version using the new rule set. Is that still the case with Quest?
I don't believe so. I think they're very different, and Thunderstone Advance, using the stuff from Thunderstone Original, that was one of those things where like, yeah, you can do it. And after one game, I was like, not doing it. They look too different. I can't handle it.
Yeah. They use different iconography.
But here they are. There's enough differences, especially with costs, and like monsters give you points now instead of them sticking in your deck. So just they wouldn't be compatible. Mm-hmm. Although again, if you know one, you can know the other. And also, if you remember, Thunderstone Advance has been out of print now for several years, so most people probably don't even have it.
True.
Well, after your discussion, I know where someone could pick up a copy because it sounds... I mean, Tom, you had me when you were talking about the individuality. That feeds my collectible card game side, where I'm like, oh, I just like that individuality, that it's my deck. It's not, oh, who's going to get to that buy those cards first. That sounds so good. So good.
Yeah, I'm just that's the thing that attracts me the most. Like in Dominion, the one card I will always use if I were playing with my set is Black Market. Because in Black Market, you take every card in the game and then one card of each, and you draw from the Black Market and you can buy it. And then I have a card no one else has. And I just feel, even if I'm not as efficient as someone else, I'm a little different.
Yeah.
And there's just something about that I like.
So next up for me is Indulgence. This is one of the first games from Restoration Games. This is there were many names that this game went by over the past several years and decades. It's a pretty old game. It's a trick-taking game. In this case, it is a religious-themed trick-taking game. You go around the table a certain number of times, and each player gets to be the leader. I think it's 3 times you get to be the leader. And the leader looks at their cards, and they're standard suits, basically. And there are also 3 rules on the table. And the leader is going to, after looking at their hand, pick a rule that everyone has to follow that basically determines how that leader is going to earn points. So one might say, I will not take any of the blue suit. And then if anybody takes a trick with blue cards in it, they will be paying the leader money. And that's how the leader earns coins. Basically, you are going to earn points on your turn when you're the leader in each round of the game. But the twist is that you can't make the rule too juicy because everyone has the chance to, what they call in the game, sin, or rather break the rule, do the opposite of the rule. Shoot the moon. So you are saying, in my earlier example, I'm going to take all of the blue cards. All of them have been dealt out, so there's none of those shenanigans. But so if you decide to shoot the moon, you get a ring, which is this gorgeous little component, better than any other rings that I've seen in any board games. You get this ring, which is an additional ability that turns any card that you play into a 10. All the cards go from 1 to 9 in the game. So a 10 will beat any other cards if you are playing it correctly. And so you have, if you're going to shoot the moon, you have sort of an extra advantage working against the system. Plus, hopefully, the cards in your hand that are going to help you out and do this. And if you succeed in doing this, you get paid by everybody else. And so it's a pretty big reward. If you're playing the advanced game, you can also, as the leader, choose all 3 of the face-up rules and make everybody follow all of those. But then somebody can still shoot the moon with all 3 of them. And if they do that successfully, they win the game outright. Other than that, you continue around 3 times, with each player being the leader 3 times, and whoever has the most coins and gems at the end of the game wins. It's very straightforward. For fans of trick-taking games, it's super easy to grasp, and even the rulebook explains what trump cards are and basic trick-taking concepts if you aren't familiar with that sort of thing. But what I like about this is that each round is a slightly different experience. You've got different emphases that you're working on. You sometimes are trying to avoid pairs of cards or a particular suit, or you want to take the first or last trick, or avoid taking the first or last trick of the round. A nice variation of different rules that you're working with here. And so I feel like every round is fresh, even though it's not a quick game. Each round goes relatively quickly, but you go around the table 3 times. That takes a little while. But still, everything is so different and varied. I did not feel bored in any way. I did not feel like we were being repetitive in this trick-taking game. Every round was different.
It actually isn't as long as you might think, because if I decide on, for example, on a trick to take all the blue cards, and as soon as someone else takes a blue card, you don't have to play out the rest of that trick.
If you're shooting the moon, yes.
Right, if you're shooting the moon. So that can speed it up. And it's kind of fascinating because Eric says it feels fresh, but yet at the same time, this is quite an old game. In fact, this game was the basis for another trick-taking game I like called The Dwarf King. But this is really edging to be my favorite trick-taking game ever.
It's that good.
I really like it. I really like I love shooting the moon, right? If I play hearts and if I have a chance to shoot the moon and get all the hearts, I will do it because I think that's so much fun.
Yeah.
And in this game, that shooting the moon is is a fun thing to try. And when you can shoot the moon on all three and then you win the game, it's almost impossible to do. But I almost did it, folks, and I didn't. But I blame my wife, who was at the same table. But I mean, man, and the cards are beautiful. The only negatives are it is not left-handed friendly or upside-down friendly.
Yeah, the numbers are only in one corner. Yeah,
you have to have them in one hand spread, and I wish they had not done that.
But Tom, I play this game with Marty, and I didn't hear him complain about that, and he is left-handed, so I guess maybe he's gotten used to being a minority in the world from that standpoint. But I'm with you guys. I really enjoy Indulgence. I like how it takes hearts to the next level, especially for those. And another thing, you mentioned the cards. I like the oversized cards because it helps the little ones hold them better.
Do you think this is a game for little ones, though? I just think it's too... I found that in my life, trick-taking games are the hardest games to teach people who haven't played them like their whole life.
Right. It's almost a cultural gap we've got going on right now.
But I think that's where this one can kind of bring that to them. Now, I say little ones, I'm not talking 6 years olds. I'm talking, the 12, 13 type. And for me, since there's not that many instances of where you have Trump to me has always been the hardest card mechanic to teach people to understand following suit and when to play Trump. And since I don't see that as much, it's easier to say, hey, you're not supposed to take sixes this time. You understand that? And I think it's a good way to bring them into a card game. Now, then again, I've been playing cards all my life, so I may be a little jaded here. I don't know.
Yeah, well, either way, this is, man, I originally, we got this, and Z's like, I'll take it. And I was like, all right, let me play a hand with you. I played a hand, and I'm like, oh, man, I got to play more of this. It's just, trick-taking games nowadays try to be funny or corny or do some unique, weird thing. But I'll tell you what, another thing this has shown me between this and a game we're going to talk about like in maybe 20 seconds, Rob Daviau is an amazing developer. I mean, unbelievable that he could take these older games, which are good to begin with, make them feel like they were released in 2017. And I am so impressed with him as a developer. So... what was this game again? This is Indulgence. Right?
Indulgence, yes. So for me, following that Restoration Games theme, I got to play Downforce, also known as Top Race, designed by Wolfgang Kramer. Restoration is bringing it out. And the first thing that caught my eye to this game is it is just such a gorgeous game. The box, I mean, they are doing an incredible job with their boxes. But Downforce is a game about racing. Now, it's not about getting your car to the finish line. No, this is about trying to figure out which cars are going to place well and getting the bets correctly on your score sheet. Now, at the start of the game, you are going to be bidding on a car, and that will be the car that you own, and you will get a special card from that lets you move it 8 spaces. All the other people go around till all the cars are taken. Once that's done, then we begin the race. and you have a hand of cards. And when you play this card, you will basically be playing top down. They will have the card's colors on this card. For instance, you may see a card that has 5 red, then 4 blue, then 3 yellow, and the person who plays that card will then begin to move the cards around the track. Now, I mentioned the betting that goes on. There are 3 times on the board when the car crosses the yellow line, all the players secretly bid on who they think will be the first place car to finish. So you continue to race around the board until all the cars are finished, and you total up your winnings minus your auction for choosing the driver, and whoever has the highest score wins. So it's not necessarily, do you want your car to win? No, it's, did you bet on who is going to come first? Now, it helps you if your car does win because you get a little bit more money. Overall, a very simple racing game. If you like Camel Up, I can see where this game is right there. I just really enjoyed playing it. There's a lot of strategy. There's also powers that can be played for each of the owners. For instance, I had a power that I was able to reverse the order and how the cars move. I like that. I love it when you have those special mechanics. But Downforce, I saw it on all the live streaming from the Dice Tower Con. People had that game out, and it looked like they were loving it down there, guys.
You know, I just mentioned that the Indulgence is turning into one of my favorite trick-taking games. This Downforce is turning into one of my favorite racing games. I just want to keep playing it. And I want more tracks actually now.
Yeah.
And more special powers, but it does exactly what I want to do in a racing game. First of all, it's a fast racing game.
Yes.
Because, there's so many racing games out there that are slow. And it lets you mess with the other players, just like Ave Caesar, which is one of my favorite games. This one does the same thing. And you can bet on other people to win. Like, my strategy is this: do as best as I can, bet on Jason. It works very well, and I beat Jason because I have more faith in him than he does in himself.
Nice.
I just like this game. No, super fun, nice high quality, and once again, Rob Daviau, an amazing developer.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one as well. Differences from other versions of the game. I knew this as Detroit-Cleveland Grand Prix, using the same mechanisms. But the art style is really cool. It's almost like a washed out... what would you call it? It's not solid colors. They're sort of painted on colors, but it gives a real sense of texture to all of the graphics on the cards. Those powers that Tony talked about, they get auctioned along with the cars. So you may really want to bid on a car that has a cool ability, even though you may not have the strongest hand with that particular car. And that offers a whole lot of variety as well. The cars are bigger than they were in previous versions of this game. I think they've really done a terrific job upgrading this into Downforce and making it look like a brand new game.
And to the point of the auction, the fact that you're just doing it one bid. I mean, it's not like, hey, I bid 2, I bid 3. No, I love how they streamlined that. That was brilliant. And it speeds the game along so much. And Tom, I agree with you. It's just so fast. And the fact that you get 2 tracks, I mean, right off the bat. But yeah, I'm with you. I want more boards. Let's go. Get me more special powers. I can see expansions. Just keep coming. You got a moneymaker here.
I'll tell you, they're really Restoration Games. I'm always very wary of new companies, but Restoration Games has their act together. All 3 of these games, Stop Thief, Downforce, and Indulgence, are 3 solid, come out the gate things. And we mentioned announcements at Gen Con. They're making some big sort of announcement on our show.
Oh, goody!
So I hope they're redoing Monopoly.
Sure.
Well, what, Tropical Tycoon, is that what you're referencing? So that it can be like on your iOS instead of having to put in a DVD player?
Oh.
You know what? Since I'm gonna change the script on the fly here.
You're going to talk about the new Monopoly, aren't you?
I'm going to talk about Monopoly. What's it called here so I can write the right thing on it?
Monopoly Gamer?
Monopoly what?
Gamer. This is the Mario one? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, Monopoly Gamer. So I went to the store and I was doing a kids thing with the games and someone's child stole all the marbles out of the game that they brought, which was problematic. So I was like, all right, first of all, give me my marbles back, Jimmy. But then secondly, I was like, I need a game. So I went to the store and found a game, and I was looking at all the games and ended up bringing home 10. But that besides the point. Monopoly Gamer, well, I think it's important, not just the games that get sent to me. I think it's important to review the games that are available at Toys R Us and Walmart,
It's
just
true.
because they're games people can see.
Right, yeah.
So I had heard about Monopoly Gamer, but I didn't just buy Monopoly Gamer. I also brought the 8 extra characters for it.
Oh, boy. You
They come
found
in
them all.
booster packs, but you can see in the booster pack which one you're getting. So, so anyway, Monopoly Gamer is a game for 4 players. And even if you add in these 8 extra characters, you can give each player 3 characters. You can choose your characters, and then you can switch them out on your turn.
Oh.
Which is really the best way to play.
Interesting.
Because the characters have different special abilities, even though I think Yoshi's might be overpowered. But on your turn, you roll 2 dice. One die is a 6-sided die, and that's how far you move. By the way, the board looks initially like a regular Monopoly board. The other die gives you a special thing that you do that basically comes out of one of the Mario games. So a green turtle shell hits the next person in front of you. A red turtle shell, you can hit anyone on the board. A pow makes everyone drop coins. There's a symbol that gives you coins. The currency of this game is coins, not paper money, so it has a point for that.
Mm-hmm.
But as many, many things in this game make you drop coins, and then when someone else moves over those coins, they get them. Coins are currency for the game, and at the end of the game, every 5 coins is worth 10 points. If you land on a property, you can buy it. If you don't buy it, it goes up for auction, just like regular Monopoly. And the coins are the prices for these properties are really cheap. They're between 1 and 5 coins.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see why you would ever not buy one.
Unless you didn't have the money.
Yeah, unless you don't have the money for some reason. And then if someone else lands on the property, they pay you a certain amount of coins. And if you have both of the color properties, because there's 2 of all of them, they pay you double that amount. There's no houses, no hotels, just 1 or 2 properties. There's other things you can land on. If you land on a block, you roll a die, and that's how many coins you get. If you land on a pipe, you shoot to the next pipe. If you land on one of those blocks that fall on your head, I forget what they're called.
Thwomps.
You have to drop... I'm sorry, what?
Thwomps.
Womps, you're right. You have to drop 2 coins. And every time someone goes around go, which doesn't happen as often as you think because you're rolling 1 6-sided die, you flip over a boss, and then everyone fights that boss. You basically pay to fight the boss, and then you roll a die, and if you roll a certain number or higher, you kill the boss. Bosses are worth points. Properties are worth points, and then money's worth points. But you also have special abilities. There are some spaces when you land on them, a star, you activate your star special ability, which is usually pretty phenomenal. Like, you might get to roll again, or roll a die and get that much coins plus 5 more coins. Or Yoshi's ability, which gives you every coin on the board that's laying on the ground. And then they also have another special ability. When you roll that other die, one of the sides of that dice is better for you than it is for everybody else.
Right.
Now, I heard tale through the Dice Tower internet connections that Eric Summer was not fond of this game.
I wasn't. I thought it was too dumbed down. It was like Mario Party in a board game form, with all the dropping of coins and the shooting around the board and all those special powers and the shells shooting around. If there is any joy to be found in Monopoly for me, it's the trading, it's the resource management, it's the risk versus reward of how much you're willing to spend, the trading, the dealing. While there is trading in this, it's almost useless. I mean, there's only 2 properties in each Monopoly group. There's no property development. It really dumbs the whole system down in order to have this chaotic Mario Party atmosphere, which is fun. I enjoyed it, but if I'm going to play a kid's version of Monopoly, I would rather stick with Tropical Tycoon than play...
Well, first of all, I don't necessarily think Tropical Tycoon's a kid's version of Monopoly.
No,
but
you're right.
That's the key here, folks, is I basically agree with Eric, but when I look at this game as a kid's game, they had such a blast. They all know all this stuff. I don't even have to teach it to them. They know what green shells do and red shells do. More people in the world know who Mario is than who know who Mickey Mouse is at this point. And so they got these, they got the characters. They liked switching the characters in and out. That was a lot of fun. That additional thing if you buy these extra characters. And yes, it is a lot of luck, and there's a lot of take that. Like, a lot.
Yeah.
and yet the kids really enjoyed it. So for that, I'm thumbing it up as a kids game. Just as an adult game, yeah, you'll find it too lucky and too problematic. That's Monopoly Gamer.
So one of the events at Dice Tower Con is the flea market, in which Tom gets rid of piles and piles of games. And there was a small box that I spotted, and while no one was looking, I grabbed it. It's called Deckscape. Test Time. This is one of those escape room boxes that I've been looking for some time and managed to snag it. I played it with my son last night. Deckscape, similar to the Unlock games, uses just a deck of cards. There's no app either in this system. It's just the deck. Fully resettable. You're not, I guess they tell you can write on one of the cards as like a score card, but you could easily just do that with a scratch pad of paper and not mark up the cards at all. The system basically is a series of puzzles. Sometimes you will need to grab an item that you'll find that will be a card from elsewhere in the deck. But basically, you're looking at a puzzle that's represented by a card, and you come up with an answer, like, I need to push this button, or here's the number combination I need. And you flip it over, and it tells you what the answer should be. And if you're correct, you simply move on. If you're incorrect, you get an X. You get a demerit, basically, for getting it wrong. And usually, you still move on in the system. And once you have completed the game and solved all of the puzzles, you get a score based on how long it took you to complete the game and how many X's you've racked up. You add time, basically, and then you're ranked based on how fast it was. That's the game. While I enjoyed the puzzles, I found them just a hair simple, for one thing. There were some that were a little more tricky. But I also felt they were very disconnected. And I also didn't like the system where you could simply flip over the card and see if you were right or not. And you get one shot at each puzzle, basically. If you get it wrong, you've already looked at the solution. So then you go, okay, I guess I just move on then. It didn't have that thematic connection of having to solve the puzzle in order to move forward. Whereas with Unlock, you cannot advance unless you have put the pieces together in the proper way. I mean, you can use the app and get hints and stuff in Unlock, but you need to do it in order to move forward. Whereas in Deckscape, yeah, your score is going to suffer, but you can keep flipping cards, and it doesn't slow you down in any way. So I wasn't as, I mean, this is a gradient. I'm enjoying all of this style of game. This is not in any way a bad experience, but I did not have the same enthusiasm for the immersion aspect of Deckscape that I have with Exit and Unlock. So this one's farther down in the hierarchy in those escape room games, but that's Deckscape Test Time.
You know, I understand what you're saying, but I like this one anyway because it made the most sense how the puzzles worked. It's like, what do you do here? You're like, oh, you do this, and you say it, and you turn over the card. Yes, I know if you're wrong, that happens, but usually everyone's discussing it, talking about the problem, trying to figure it out, and not just flipping the card before they know how to do it. And it worked so well with families. Did your son like it?
I think he did. He lost interest somewhere in the middle. So I was playing solo for at least a third of it.
Have you played any of the escape room games, Tony?
I have not. I've got Unlock sitting waiting for me for when we get our party of 6 together. I'm hoping that, and I hate to be a downer here, I know we're riding this wave of escape rooms, and it just seems like we're being flooded with these. Pick this one or pick that one. So I'm just waiting for it to calm down a little bit. But I'm looking forward to Unlock. I've been to many escape rooms, and so it's enjoyable. And I haven't done them yet. But what I'm hearing is from everybody and listening to y'all, Unlock is really nice.
It is.
Well, I'm saying I want there to be more of them. I don't think there's enough of them.
Oh, man, really?
I just got the new Deckscape in, Eric, and I'm like,
really?
Must play this now, but I haven't.
Well, I'm not saying don't send it to me when you're done, because I still want to play another one.
I feel like that's what he said here, Tony, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what I heard. Well, what I originally heard at the beginning was when no one was looking, I snagged it. Now that to me sounds like theft.
Yeah, well, it was my first puzzle.
That's probably why you didn't like it as much, Eric, because it was the result of stealing.
Ah, Oh, so my conscience really prevented me from fully enjoying the experience.
This seems like a reasonable thing.
All right, well, so I will ask for the next one when you're done with it, and maybe I'll feel better about it.
Unreal.
Folks, I really did ask before I took it. I didn't just steal it.
Oh, you just didn't steal it. It was just, you just snagged it. You took it from
I said, hey, Tom, can I have this? And I stole it from Z, actually.
Well, then it doesn't count.
Right.
So for me, the next game that I got to play was one that we were doing a review for our podcast, and that's called Lignum. Now, have you two gentlemen played this yet? Did you play the original? This was the second edition we got from Capstone Games.
No, it's on Jason's shelf, actually, in our group.
No, I haven't played it.
Well, Lignum is about being a mill boss. You're running a lumber mill, and you are trying to... And now, this is one of the things I love, Tom. It's not about getting the most victory points as a lot of these games are, these strategic Euro games. No, it's not victory points. It is getting the most money. Okay, I'm being sarcastic there. Sorry. So anyway, you are going down a path, and you are trying to figure out what resources you need to be able to meet your contracts that will earn you the most money. Now, you got to be very careful here. This is one of these very tight Euro games, but I don't want people to be scared by it, because when you hear about these heavy Euro type games, you're like, oh, I'll never learn it. Actually, this game is fairly straightforward. The iconography on the game is brilliant. It's easy to follow, but you have some really hard decisions, because you have to go out there and understand that when you go out, you are competing against others for forest space. Then once you do that, you go out and you have to hire your workers or collect resources such as saws. Imagine that. And once you've gone through the forest and done that and then harvested your wood, you then go towards the mill. You have to transport your lumber to your mill. Then you have to process it and decide, am I going to sell it? Or am I going to keep it as firewood? Because this game is played in 4 rounds, 2 years with 4 seasons. 2 times 4 is 8, I believe. Yes. And anyway, but in the winter phases, you can't go in the forest and collect stuff, but you've got to have firewood. And you also got to feed your workers. And so that's one of those things that you also have to take into account when you're playing this game, is you've got to have this stuff built up. There's a lot of thinking about this, and I'm telling you, you better have a bottle of Tylenol sitting nearby. But it played very fast for us. So Lignum was one of those games that I'm like, I love the path following games like Great Western Trail. I love those types of games. So I was really looking forward to this. And, for me, it did not disappoint. I had a few issues, though, when it came to the feeding of people. I just felt like, well, I'm not understanding why we've got to do this. It made sense of having to forest and get your firewood built up because of the winter. But I understand why it was put in there is to make it competition for the various forests. It was a way to entice you to compete in the woods onto which area you got to cut down. Now, this is a 2-hour game. It's by all means, it's not a light, but it's not a hard game to teach. So, I watched Jason teach some games on Dice Tower Live. He's got this. He can handle this. He doesn't need to watch the videos.
All right. Well, we're going to have to trust your word on that one. So that's Lignum from Capstone Games. Mm-hmm. Capstone Games is really like on the ball here, having a lot of these. Although they're introducing a new line called Simply Complex. Which are lighter style games, I think.
Okay.
That's a confusing name to me, but hey, we need to keep going here. That was a lot of games. Let's move on.
And now, another tale of board gaming horror.
Oh my, that's horrific.
Gather round, children. My game group used to have a problem. There were many of us, and all of us being good friends, we tended to try and play games that we could all play together. With our then quite limited game library, we ended up doing things like making extra player tokens for Dixit, or playing games we weren't really that fond of. After a 7-hour-long game of Munchkin, we decided we had to do something. That's when a friend of ours introduced us to the social deduction game Avalon. We were hooked. We ended up playing Avalon almost every game night. And when we didn't play Avalon, we played games like Werewolf, Good Cop, Bad Cop, and other social deduction games. It came to the point where I couldn't stand the thought of socially deducing again, especially considering the growing pile of barely played 3 to 5 player games in my collection. Fast forward a year or so, I attended a local video game convention. The big star speaker this time was Tim Schafer, founder of Double Fine. He was responsible for making some of my favorite video games, and it broke my heart when I wasn't able to attend his talk. The line was simply too long when I got there. Angry with myself and generally a bit annoyed, I went to the after-party to meet a couple of my friends. While scouting the room for them, I was approached by a stranger. "Hey, we're looking for people to join a game of Werewolf. Want to come?" Still a bit moody, I answered, I'm sorry. I really can't stand that game." "Okay, well, have fun at the party," he said, and left. I saw him enter a room. Inside was a big table, some strangers, my friends, and Tim Schafer. And then the door was shut closed.
Okay, so I actually had to look up who Tim Schafer was.
Oh man, he made Psychonauts.
Well, yes, I didn't think Psychonauts. I was thinking Curse of the Tentacle, but yes. That I just think this is funny. He was looking for this guy. Had that one of the lifetime opportunities you could join in the game, and he said no.
Yeah. Oh man, the regret. The regret
story.
hurts. Ow.
Maybe it's a tale of regret.
It is a tale of regret.
Have you guys ever had a chance to be in a game and you said no, then later on you're like, what? I didn't know that, or I would have joined?
I have not, but I thought y'all did this just for me and my love for social deduction games. And no, I'm not being serious here. I could see this happening to me, where you and Eric and Z and Sam are all there, and I'm dying to play a game with y'all, and then someone says, "Hey, we're playing a game." I can so see this happening to me, and it would be y'all doing that, and I'd be like, "Oh man." Because, yeah, I live this. I feel this tale of horror right here.
I wasn't planning to do that, but we are now.
Oh, thank you. Oh, once again, I can just see the disappointment. But just to do that, I would go play Werewolf if I must.
Well, on the flip side, this just goes to show that you never know where playing a game will lead you.
That's true. This is a tale of positivity.
Yeah, say yes to things.
This.
There you go.
All right, let's hear from Geoff.
3, 2, 1, go.
It's time for Gametek with Geoff Engelstein, where we find out how games really work.
In 1999, baseball's St. Louis Cardinals had a poor season, finishing over 20 games behind the Houston Astros. But in 2000, they came roaring back, in a big part due to their phenom rookie pitcher, Rick Ankiel. Now, injuries to some of their other pitchers pushed their younger starters to the fore, and Cardinals manager Tony La Russa decided to have Ankiel start the first playoff game against the Braves. The Cardinals raced out to an early 6-0 lead, but in the third inning, something happened. Ankiel threw 5 wild pitches before being pulled from the game. And these weren't pitches that just were a little bit outside the strike zone. These were pitches that were hitting the dirt 10 feet in front of the plate or being thrown into the crowd. It was the most wild pitches thrown in a single inning since 1890. The Cardinals went on to win the Braves series and went on to face the Mets. Ankiel started Game 2 and threw 20 pitches in the first inning, 6 of which were wild, again including pitches into the crowd. He was pulled. And Rick Ankiel never regained his form and basically never pitched again in the major leagues. Now, I was a big Mets fan at the time, and I vividly remember watching both of those games against the Braves and the Mets, and it was incredibly distressing. I was literally watching a human unravel in front of millions of people, and in spite of my allegiance to the Mets, it just made my heart sink. Tony La Russa later said that deciding to start Ankiel in the first playoff game is the one decision that has haunted him the most. Now, Ankiel was 21 years old at the time. He must have been pitching since he was maybe 7 or 8, so here's an action he's performed thousands of times, and suddenly it seemed like he forgot how to do it. How does that happen? How can you play a game for years and years and then suddenly not be able to do it anymore? Now, first off, this is not something that is isolated to Rick Ankiel. It's seen in every sport that requires repetitive, precise motion, and it's got a name, the Yips. The Yips have been seen in golf, cricket, darts, archery, bowling, and more. The common factor is that it is an action that needs to be performed accurately and is repeated over and over. So, are the Yips purely psychological, like an extreme form of choking, or is there some underlying physical cause? There's actually been surprisingly little research on the cause of the Yips. That's partly due to the stigma around it. Professionals are terrified of getting the Yips and shun players who experience it. However, there was one study performed at Arizona State University a few years ago, and the results were quite interesting. The study looked at golfers who had the Yips and wired them up to a variety of biometric monitors and asked them to make putts. They found that the Yips were triggered by contractions or spasms of certain muscles at a critical point during the swing. They also saw some interesting things in terms of the psychology of the Yips. Everyone had assumed that it was basically a mental block. There wasn't necessarily a physiological explanation. It was all in the player's head. But during this study, they saw that these abnormal contractions happened in a wide range of intensities. Sometimes they were so minor that the golfers assumed that their swings were just fine. But the instruments showed that their muscles were misbehaving, just not enough to make a difference. But psychological pressure definitely did impact the contractions. When the players were pressured, the magnitude of the contractions grew and were more noticeable. Now, this is actually similar to what is seen with Parkinson's and other neuromuscular problems. The symptoms are always there, but they are exacerbated under pressure. They also saw similarities between the Yips and what is called writer's cramp and musician's cramp. There are pianists who, after years of playing, suddenly lose control or one or more of their fingers, but only while playing the piano. In other activities, the fingers work just fine. Players try all kinds of things to get past the Yips with varying success, partly because they are mostly psychological tricks and don't address the underlying neurological issue. One of those things is closing your eyes or looking at a different point than normal. One golfer got over the Yips by changing his focus during his swing. He looked at the crowd instead of down at the ball, and that was enough to change the neurology. One of the theories is that the brain is anticipating the collision between the club and the ball, or whatever the critical point is in that particular activity. And by removing knowledge of when that is going to happen exactly, you can make your motion more fluid and prevent that last millisecond spasm. Amazingly, I sort of seen this exact phenomenon in space cadets. Now, to fire torpedoes, you flick a disc down a track, and people flub it completely more often than not. Although I was playing a game years ago with Tom and Eric at Gen Con, and there was this young girl who was on weapons, and she was insanely deadly with that disc. But back to the matter at hand. Now, we have in the game a damage card that forces the person on weapons to flick the disc with their eyes closed. And I find this card really fascinating. When it comes up, people get really frazzled and pressured, and they try to repair it as quickly as possible. But my observation has been that people more often than not improve when they shoot with their eyes closed. I don't have anything beyond anecdotal evidence on that, but I've seen it enough times that I believe it. Give it a shot the next time you play a flicking game. Now, the story of Rick Ankiel actually has a lot more twists and turns. After he gave up pitching, he ended up moving to the outfield and became a fairly decent hitter, hitting a home run in his first major league game after returning. It's a fascinating tale, and he wrote a book called The Phenomenon, which details his struggles with the Yips. Now, as much as you and I assume that we are in control of our bodies, professional athletes and musicians who've spent so many years honing their fine muscle coordination must feel doubly so. The idea that after years of training, that can suddenly desert you is both terrifying and fascinating. Hopefully someday we'll figure it out, but in the meantime, try closing your eyes. This is Geoff Engelstein with Gametek.
You know, I'm far from a professional athlete, but I have experienced, the pressure that comes with the Yips, that you think you've got something you've practiced over and over again, and it just doesn't work when the pressure gets turned up for some reason. I in my curling days, I was sitting with like 4 biters in the house, and there was just one lone stone of the other team right on the button, and all I had to do was take the darn thing out. It was wide open. It's like the easiest shot of all. And I got in the hack and I threw the stone, and I was narrow and I was fast. And the thing just sailed through the house, and the other team stole the point. I mean, I had the hammer and everything. I would have scored 5, essentially ending the game practically, and kept the other team in the game. They came back and won the darn thing. So I
is
definitely
no
know what
way
he's
that
talking about.
you did not. You know what you just did, and that's wrong of you.
What?
No, you know that we didn't know any of those terms, and you know that. Don't act like, oh, doesn't everyone know those terms? Because you know that. So we're not gonna fall for this. I'm gonna go. Interesting.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, you do. You are lying right now through your microphone,
What?
Eric. Liarer.
Thank goodness for the Winter Olympics. I got some of them, but I'm quickly going to YouTube to check some of those terms. But in 2018, we'll
I
get to
just
see
thought everyone-
a whole bunch of curling because Winter Olympics is coming. Thank you for that. Tom, did he not realize he was talking to 2 guys who live in a climate where curling is not really a sport down here?
I just
He
thought everyone
realized
would
that.
enjoy the story.
No, he realized that. And no.
I've never known. I
thought
think
he
it's
would-
not a baiter. He doesn't come in and try to make you make a fool of yourself, does he?
I thought you would enjoy the story.
You've never met Eric and Jason in the same room then. All right, let's go to some questions.
Tom.
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 Hi, Tom.
Have you ever accidentally eaten one of your game pieces?
Do you ever make a fort out of game boxes?
How big can a miniature be before it's not really a miniature? And now, the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe, answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the game library?
Okay, folks, Alex sent us in 11 questions. That's a lot of questions,
What?
but some of them were good, so we're going to go through these as fast as we can. I'll read the first one.
Okay.
He says, this year, within a few days of UK Games Expo, everything that was close to it sold out for the 2018 version. So he said it could be gamers, could be other events, not sure. There's similar shortages at Essen, and I think both of those pale besides the horrors of Gen Con lodging. He says, do you think as conventions struggle with this, will less people be able to attend? And do you think we'll see a convention offering overnight sleeping in a large hall or field like at a music festival? And I would actually probably refuse to attend that convention if they did such a thing.
Well, just as one of the options.
No, I don't want to game with the people who slept in that field.
I mean, it's
We already
it's bad enough with con funk as it is. Can you imagine the smell of hay and all this as well? Oh my!
No, you
Who said
know those
anything
people
about
aren't
hay?
taking showers. None of them. That's a whole field of people not taking showers.
Yeah, that
No.
doesn't sound like a good idea.
No, it sounds like an awful idea. I think that this does limit conventions. Definitely, that's one of the advantages we have at Dice Tower Con is that we're in Orlando. There's like a gazillion hotels, and even we
Right.
one time were almost boxed out by a giant teaching convention that came to the city, and we had to move our dates actually so that we didn't
Right.
that we were able to do it. But Gen Con, hotel lodging is their biggest problem. Origins, it's a problem at Origins, although not as bad. Definitely a problem at Essen. I mean, last year, Eric and the gang had to stay, what was that, like 15 minutes away?
Yeah, 15 or 20 minutes away in a B&B.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. So if you want to go to a convention, before you buy the tickets to the convention, get your lodging.
Right. Speaking of which, the Dice Tower Convention lodging code is actually public now if you check the Facebook and the website.
Yeah, so you better get that quickly. All right, what's the next question?
Oh, I wanted to ask one other question. Like, Gen Con, the housing nightmare that is Gen Con, why don't they just let all the hotels just book willy-nilly? Like, why can't you just book a 1 year in advance or something?
I don't
What
know.
is it
I
that
don't like
really-
that because then it's like a game then for the conventions. You know, then people start booking way ahead of time, and it's the same problem, it's just earlier.
Right. But a little more fair, maybe. I don't know.
Well, they do it fairly now. It's random.
True. I guess the issue is that there just aren't enough hotels downtown.
There really isn't. And in fact, I think they sell out every hotel in the whole city.
Right. And so not enough. Everyone wants to stay downtown, but not everyone can. And that makes a lot of frustration.
I know when I went 5 years ago, I stayed 20 minutes away because I wasn't sure I was going. Had no problem driving in, but I can only imagine what it's like now to try to find parking there. I mean, I'm sure it's just... I hear Dice Tower was just as bad.
Parking's fine. Dice Tower was bad. Oh, you mean for parking? Yeah, I mean, I had to drive around a little bit to find parking. That problem may be... I don't know. We'll see how that works next year. But parking is never a problem if you come early.
Okay.
True. And they also park at Lucas Oil Stadium and shuttle in.
There you go.
Second question. Tom, you spoke recently of how you teach games. Great advice. But I wonder specifically with Cosmic Encounter if you have any additional tips to a game that's very unique in its mechanics, plus it doesn't have the product design that, in his opinion, screams fun when you first look at the cards. He runs a board game night, and of all the games he teaches, this one seems to be the most mentally difficult for him to start. It's daunting and always seems to take a while. I do play with a lot of non-gamers or ones recent to the hobby in the group. Any special tips for Cosmic Encounter?
Really, I make it sound like the most exciting game on earth. I get very pumped about it. I talk about I like this game because of this, because of that. And I start out by teaching basic, and then like 5 minutes in, I'm like, what? Here's what makes this game amazing. Maybe I'll do a video on that someday. How I teach Cosmic Encounter. Maybe I'll do that.
Will Z be added to the Miami Dice opening credits as a main presenter? Not featuring? Tom, I'm surprised he hasn't guilted you into this yet. What's the holdup, man?
I think it's funny that we're not, and so no. All right, next question. Eric, what's the funniest character accent you have put on during recording audiobooks? Can you repeat it right now?
Well, okay, so the funniest one that I can't repeat is I had a Russian gardener with Tourette's syndrome. So I had to do a lot of research into Russian curse words, which was interesting. And so I can't repeat that stuff. But the one I'm doing right now is I have a book that's about an MMORPG, and one of the characters is a naiad trader. So I have to do a lot of talking like this as if he has gills and is speaking underwater. And I enjoy doing that. Like long speeches where I talk about catching fish. It's good. I like it.
I want to do a whole show with you like that.
Tales of underwater.
Hey, have you ever done Southern?
I do. I've actually done a number of books that are set in the South in various areas. So I've got a couple of Southern accents in my back pocket, yeah.
I just thought of a game for Gen Con.
Oh, no.
Oh, this should be good. This should be real good.
Now I'm terrified. How do you find the time to play all these new games for reviewing and also to play the games in your collection? I assume some is booked in with work, but still, for the amount you get through, it's impressive. What do you say, Tom?
I don't sleep, and I play the new review games a lot more than I play the games for fun. But I do get to play the games for fun occasionally. I played some at Dice Tower Con and things. I get them played enough that I'm happy. I just play games all the time. That's pretty much it. I play games with my family, play games with my friends, and I try to be efficient about it.
My brother has a friend who went blind 2 years ago suddenly. They have found that playing board games works. The friend has developed an incredible ability to visualize his surroundings and can picture and memorize the board to quite an impressive extent and may just need a quick reminder here and there. But of course they cannot play with any games that you have to keep hidden cards, so co-op seem to work best. These are examples of games they can play together. Flashpoint, Pandemic, D&D, Hive, Memoir 44. Can you think of any others that could work? Now, I really thought long and hard about this.
I don't think Memoir 44 is a co-op game.
I'm not sure D&D is either, but either way, it's all about the visualization. I thought long and hard about this, gentlemen, and this is tough.
What about something that doesn't have a board? There was the series that Z-Man put out called Dark Stories, which
that's
were basically...
not a game. That's not a game. That's not a game.
It's still enjoyable puzzle-solving fun.
It's basically 20 questions.
Yeah, maybe. I still like it. I think that's a great idea. It doesn't need a board. You're just trying to visualize in your head what's going on, asking questions to clarify the situation. I like dark stories.
I'll one-up you. Tales of Arabian Nights. Because you can just give the options, and you pick it and see what happens.
Yeah, that's true.
What about some of the Red Raven games with near and far, above and below?
Well, I thought about that, but there's a lot more game involved than near and far, too. You're looking at the board, there's a lot of pieces and stuff going on. So, ghost stories, if you can get it. All right. Then he asks, what are your go-to board games to de-stress after a particularly hard day?
Ooh. I think I want to roll some dice in that particular instance. Playing something like Escape or Can't Stop.
I don't actually do this. If I need to de-stress, I play video games. I don't know why, but video games help me de-stress better. I just get my own world. I'm going around doing whatever, usually playing some sort of godlike thing, like I'm creating this city or, killing goblins or whatever. So that helps me de-stress more than board games does.
And for me, I think it's not so much if I don't want to stress while playing a game. I'm looking at it from that standpoint. Ticket to Ride, boom, it's on the table. That game it actually kind of does relieve the stress because everybody knows how to play it. It's such a good game to just relax and have fun and talk. And so for me, I know your audience is probably hating it, but Ticket to Ride.
So then Alex asks a question that we're not going to answer right now, probably because we're going to try and steal it for a future top 10 list. He asks what our favorite 5 games you can actually fit in your pocket. And I want to know, how big is the pocket?
That's right. Well, we'll figure that out. We'll have sizes.
We're going to measure our pockets and get back to you on that.
And then another one we don't answer. I like this answer question session you got here, Tom. Let's just ask questions and not answer anything. I like how you do this. I like how this works on your show.
They're like rhetorical questions.
It's smooth. I like this. 5 favorite abstract games for more than 2 players. Once again, wait for later. You'll hear some more about 5-player games.
Yeah. You can never ask us these questions because I won't answer them because we'll save them for our top 10 lists. And in fact, my next question we probably won't answer either because he talks about flicking games, about all these wonderful flicking games. And then, has he missed any flicking games? Well, you'll just have to figure that out on your own. But I guess we can answer this. Are there any genres or styles you would like to see a flicking game for? I would like to see a flicking game in a grocery store.
You move your cart around the aisles? That's kind of fun.
I'm loving it.
Without knocking over the big displays of cans.
Of cans,
that I've never
yes.
seen fall over. But if I ever see one in a TV show, I know it's going
that's
to.
falling, yeah.
I would like to see an implementation of table football, where we all made up the paper footballs. I mean, a good implementation of that.
Oh, yeah, man. I used to play that paper football game all the time as a kid.
Hey, Restoration Games, get to it.
Well, there's the new, what's the name of the Osprey games?
Zoo
Ball. That I haven't yet played. I brought it, I carded it to Dice Tower Con and I carded it back. I didn't actually get to play it while I was there. But that one,
I did too,
sports game. Yeah. Nice. Fortunately, it's light. There's, it's not a heavy game. And the last question, how much is a pint of milk? Apparently, this is a common interview question in a popular British music magazine.
Half a quart?
Yeah, there you go.
I thought he was talking about...
Too much milk, honestly.
I thought he was talking cost here. 89 cents? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't buy milk in pints.
I don't buy milk. I don't really like milk that much. I buy orange juice.
And I've gotten to the age now where lactose intolerance is a thing.
I'm so sorry because cheese is amazing. All right, though.
We broke that question. Well done, team.
Let's get to the top 10 list.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10!
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
All right, folks, today we're talking about our top 10 games that are great with 5 players, which is often a category I have, and this one irritates me a lot, this number, and I'll tell you why. because there are so many games that exist that say they go to 5 players. But the publishers are demons, and they know it doesn't actually work with 5 players, or that 5th player makes the game so long that it just goes past the length. I mean, I could list hundreds of games, I think, that should not be played with 5 players, but they say 5 players on the box. Maybe you guys will run across this, but I do. It just drives me nuts. And then there's a lot of great games that are great, and they only go up to 4 players.
Yes.
So by 5 players, you could always split into a 2-player game and a 3-player game, but that seems weird. So there are some games that are great for 5 players, and that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
And Tony, normally I give garbage to Eric as a just general basis.
Yeah.
And I also give garbage to the visitor because their lists are not usually well put together. But except for one hugely glaring bad game on your list, you did a fantastic job with your list. I'm gonna congratulate you ahead of time.
Well, I appreciate that, Tom. I mean, when you told me that I was going to be doing this topic, I was like, well, I cannot represent rolling dice and taking names. I have to bring it. Matter of fact, Marty kind of made me feel bad. He said, you better let this go through the approval process. So I thank you for saying I did a 9 out of 10 good job. Thank you.
That's right. Actually, I believe Marty would agree with me on that count too. That 9 out of 10. But we'll get to that. Eric, let's start.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify. Did you say that Marty checked over your list before you submitted it?
He checked it over twice and tried to determine what was naughty or nice.
Okay. Well, I can't wait till we get to the naughty. Here we go.
Number 10.
We'll begin with my number 10, which is Reiner Knizia's Raw. It's an auction game, and what makes it good with 5 is, with more players, you've got more cycling, more auction rounds, more transferring of the nice, auction tokens, the bidding suns that you get, and just more variety of groupings of tiles and all that stuff. I don't think this really works as well as a 2-player game sort of thing. You want more chaos, more rounds, and then because you have more players, you have more chance of the raw tiles showing up, and so you get more of that tension near the end of a round where you're hoping that somebody busts while they held back and didn't win auctions earlier. Raw, it's my number 10.
Well, my number 10 is higher on Eric's list. Well, it's pretty. I'll wait.
My number 10 is also higher on Eric's list, so shall we move on?
Number 9.
Okay, it's my turn again. My number 9 isn't on anybody's list.
Of course not.
It's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is the 2000 Hasbro game. And it's a one versus many game, so you got one player playing the evil character and then 4 good characters. And just for role-playing purposes, I like having each of those people played by a different player, and you can sort of search for items and split up and come up with strategies for getting your team to defeat the big bad. I think it fits the theme best to play Buffy with 5 players. It's my number 9.
Well, I still haven't played this game, so I can't really argue with you for or against. I don't know.
Sure.
My number 9 is so fantastic that I stole it from Tony's list, and that's really the truth of it. I saw it on his list, and I was like, what? How can this game not be on my list? It really should. So that's what I did. But he did it first, so he got a better benefit.
I feel the pressure then from that, but that's okay. My number 9 is A Game of Thrones, the board game by Fantasy Flight. Now, why do I like this game with 5? Because, as Tom so eloquently said, when it goes to 6, oh my heavens, this game can go on and on and on. But for me, when you play with 5, this game now becomes the diplomacy. You don't end up with a 2v2. You actually have someone who can throw a wrench in the works. And for me, that's why I enjoy playing this game with 5. The map is crowded enough, but when you start going to the lower numbers, things get kind of spread out and people can team up. So that's why A Game of Thrones for me is my number 9 game.
I don't know that I'm trying to think how many times I played this with 6. I know I definitely played it with 5. And it definitely works in that regard. This is a good game, and it does not make many of our top 10 lists.
Woo!
Number 8.
My number 8 is going to show up on Tom's list, but I think, if I've been counting correctly, I've got more cubes in that tower. So we'll find out in a little bit.
Now, I wondered about my number 8, which is Fury of Dracula, and I thought, well, there's a lot of games like this, Scotland Yard, and, these. I really think these games work best with the full complement of players. If you're a Dracula, one person's Dracula, and then there are up to 4 people hunting him down, and I think it's best when there's 4 people because they're working together and talking, and each person controls one character, and it just really fits together, and it's so thematic and so entertaining. I really think, yes, you can play this one with 2 or 3 or 4, but it doesn't feel like it really is the best until you play with 5 players. Fury of Dracula.
I've yet to play that. I've always wanted to play this game. So at Gen Con, can we play?
He is asking the audience, I'm sure.
Well, my number 8 appears later on Eric's list again. Tom, I think he stole from all of us. I really do.
I didn't.
I really feel like he took your list, yes.
So let's just keep rolling with it.
Number 7.
Number 7 is another Reiner Knizia game, Amun-Re. What I really like about this as a 5-player game is that all of the provinces, all the territories are in play in the game. If you play with fewer players, you'll sort of draw them randomly, and then the same provinces will show up again in the second epic. But with 5, you get all of them and all of the different aspects of all the different provinces, and everyone is different. So it just makes it feel like a full game of Amun-Re when you play with 5. It's my number 7.
Yep, excellent choice there. I think my number 7, I know my number 7 is Horse Fever. I haven't talked about this game in a long time. Horse Fever is a game about racing horses. When the horse race begins, you are going to roll dice and move those horses forward, except other horses may move forward based on different things that happen. But because before the race, you have drugged some of the horses, you have given some of the horses hot peppers, you are betting on horses, betting against horses. It is the most crooked racing game in existence, and that's saying a lot. But it really works well with 5 because everyone has a hand in this. It's hilarious fun. I'd love to see a streamlined version someday. Horse Fever.
My number 7 is 7 Wonders. Now, for me, this game really plays well at 5 because I can still see what everybody is gathering, collecting, doing their set collection. Yes, that's a throwback to y'all discussing set collection top 10. But anyway, 7 Wonders, when you go above 5 for me, I feel like you can lose track of who is hoarding the science. Or wait a minute, how is the military are all the militaries over there? So for me, it plays very well with 5. I really enjoy it at that number.
That's interesting. I don't know that I've ever heard anyone say they like it with 5 before. I've heard people say 3, and I've heard people say, no, play the full complement. But 5, that's good. I just haven't heard anyone argue that before.
Well, it all comes around the fact of being able to see what's around you. Because, 7, you're really reaching out there trying to say, hey, so what did he take over there? And you're and then, but now I always house rule 7 wonders so people know when you build a wonder, you have to chant, I'm building a wonder. So that helps a lot when we go to 7.
House rule chanting?
Yes. I want to hear you do it, Eric. Come on. I'm building a wonder.
I'm building a wonder.
That's so awesome.
I want to do that now.
Number 6.
Number 6 was Tony's number 10, and that is Vast, the Crystal Caverns. Each player has a totally different role with different victory conditions and different mechanisms almost. So it almost feels bad to cut some of those out when you're playing with fewer than the 5. And I just want to play with all the different aspects of the game. That's why it's my number 6, Vast, the Crystal Caverns.
And the reason why I enjoy it at 5 is I feel that you bring that balance in. When you cut it below that, I have seen where games end quicker, but with the 5, I feel like you're always balancing, keeping that one person from winning suddenly, and that's why I think that Vast at 5-player is the optimal way of playing that game.
I agree. I mean, really, it works with the other numbers, but 5 is best. My number 6 is so good with 5 that I don't believe in the last 40 games of it I played with not 5.
Huh.
And that's Sheriff of Nottingham, because it's just such a great 5-player game. One person is the sheriff, and 4 people each time are trying to lie or tell him the truth and get things across the border. And it just works so well with that number. I think this is a fantastic game, obviously, in the Dice Tower Essentials line, but with 5 players, it's always one I can bring out.
My number 6, once again, appears on Eric's list, and he is just stealing the power from me. I just don't understand this. I wanted to come out here and shine on my top 10, and there he goes again.
I'm really sorry about this, and we'll talk about it later.
I'm sorry to have blacked you out.
Number 5.
My number 5 showed up on Tom's list in the number 10 position. That's Scythe. 5 is the maximum number count for the base game without the expansion. And just having all of those forces on the board really makes the game shine. You want to have all of those, folks from afar that gradually start to encroach on your territory and really seeing the board fill up with its maximum number. I think there'd be too much room if you were playing with fewer. So I really just appreciate the whole mechanisms and the different civilizations that come into play if you're playing Scythe with 5. Plus it rhymes. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Scythe works well with 5. I know that the expansion allows you to play with 7. I think that's crazy, but I saw people doing it at Dice Tower Con, and they told me the game did not go that long, so maybe I'm wrong, but 5 seems just right to play Scythe. My number 5 is Wallenstein, or you could submit Shogun here, and maybe Immortals. But I just think that these games, when there's that give and take balance, in a lot of warish type games, and Wallenstein's one of those, it can end up 2-on-2. With 5 players, there's always that 5th player in the mix, always keeping things going, and I kind of like that there.
Yeah.
So my number 5, Wallenstein.
The 5th player plays the spoiler.
My number 5 is Mare Nostrum Empires. Now, it's along the same lines of the reason of a Game of Thrones for me, just because of the ability to keep the people competing on the map. Now, Mare Nostrum, for me, the reason why it's higher than a Game of Thrones is just I love the game-winning conditions that exist for this game. And at 5, it feels like it is a tight rush for this, and I feel like the resources are really good, and you never do know who's going to come in and try to wipe you out. So for me, my number 5 is Mare Nostrum Empire.
Number 4.
Number 4 is Würfel Bonanza, the Bonanza dice game. You are trying to score on your turn in complete different combinations of these beans, but you can also score on other players' turns. And so by maxing out the player count, you have more opportunities to do that. Everyone is constantly watching to see what the other players are rolling. Ooh, you scored a combination I can use. Thank you. And making more progress on your turn continues to move the game along, and it's quite the exciting ride with 5 players. I'm amazed this isn't over here in the U.S. It's worth tracking down. Würfel Bonanza, the Bonanza dice game, my number 4.
I'm hearing rumors, Eric. I don't have any. There's nothing confirmed or nothing, but I heard rumors.
Rumors? I like rumors.
You do. That's why we spread them. Number 4 for me is Colosseum. This game, originally from Days of Wonder, now from Tasty Minstrel Games, works so well with 5 because there's 5 different people trying to all move these guys around and get them into their stadiums. It makes the trading more active and back and forth. It actually is it's a great 4-player game, but I like it best with 5, especially when Eric makes up stories about the shrubbery.
The shrubbery.
I still haven't yet to play that. That's one of those other games we've got to get to a table, but I will make sure I have 5, and I will tell him that it's because Mr. Vassal said we have to play it that way.
Yes, everything he said you should listen to.
I really do. My number 4 is Six...
He's welcome back to the show anytime.
I know. My number 4 is 6 Nimp. I love my card games, and 6 Nimp at 5 is just so much fun because it quickly fills out the rows. Because when you play that 6 card and you've got to collect them, you're sitting there, you're waiting for your bulls to. You're like, the tension is so there when you are at 5 players. That is why I love playing 6 Nimp with 5. Smaller number, I don't feel that tension. Higher number, kind of becomes a little long. But so for me, 6 Nimp, 5 players is a must.
So when you play 6 Nimps, do you remove the cards that are above the player count?
Do I remove?
So if you're playing with 5 players, do you take out everything above 54?
No, I do not like playing with the perfect knowledge. I feel that is a downgrade for that game. I like the unknowing.
Nope. Perfect knowledge all the way here. I love perfect knowledge.
It does make it a very different game if you play it that way.
Number 3.
All right, number 3 showed up on Tony's list in the number 8 position. That's Roll for the Galaxy, the dice version of Race for the Galaxy, which would also, I think, apply here. What the reason I like having more players for Roll is that the different roles in the game, the different actions that players may choose, the chance is higher that most or all of them will trigger in a particular round. So it gives you more opportunities to do stuff. Whereas if you're playing with lower counts, only a certain number of these, very few of them will be triggered each round. And that really sort of changes how much can be done in each round of the game. So I think everything flows faster when you've got 5 playing Roll for the Galaxy. My number 3.
And Eric, not only do you steal the games from my list, you also steal my reasons. I completely agree with you.
I heard you groan and everything.
Yeah. That's exactly why, for me, too. That's why I feel that Roll for the Galaxy is at 5. I like that aspect of it where you are able to get the rolls out there. I agree.
My number 3 is Caverna. Now, Caverna actually works really well with 2, and really well with 3, and really well with 4, and really well with 5, and that's about it. But it does work well with 5. Well, I will not play Agricola with 5. No way, Jose. No, shut the door. Caverna, though, I thought it would be a problem, but they added some extra spaces. They had multiple places that you can go where someone else went. There's some cool spaces that you don't see in the shorter games, and there's tenseness, of course. You're not going to get everything you want, but you still don't feel boxed out like you might in Agricola. A lot of fun to play Caverna with 5 players.
My number 3 is a game that is just so awesome at 5 players because the tension is there for this one as well, and that is Strike. A great game with 5 players. The cheering is intense. I mean, everybody is pulling for their gladiators in the arena, and matter of fact, it's going to be the Rolling Dice Taking Names game at Gen Con when we hold our meetup. We will be playing a Strike tournament, and I cannot wait to just show everybody how great this game is at 5 players.
Now, a couple quick questions here. First of all, do the hosts of Rolling Dice Taking Names agree that this is a great game?
The host of Rolling Dice and Taking Names agree that this is a great game. Now, they don't agree on the type of I say it's an arena. Some people say it's dice in the bowl, but that is the minority. I have seen individuals who have played this game while I've seen pictures, honest pictures, therefore I know it to be true, standing on a chair, chucking dice, gladiators into the arena. Is that not true, sir?
That there's pictures? There's a lot of pictures on the internet you should be looking at. Here's my thing, folks. I really feel like Strike there's an agenda here. And I'm going to stop this agenda, okay? There are people out there who are telling everyone Strike is amazing, Strike is cool. Strike is throwing dice in a bowl and seeing what happens. Nothing else. You know what else you can throw dice in? A dice tower. You know what else you can throw dice in? Actual good games. Strike is silly fun. I won't get beyond that. I can get enthusiastic when I play it, but it's not that good. And if I never play it again in my life, I will be completely fine.
Well, I can appreciate your stance on that, especially when it's in a chair and there's a grin from ear to ear on your face as you try to toss the dice. The evidence is pointing against you, sir.
No, I played a lot of bad games with smiles on my face. You can get into anything. I just don't think this is number 3. Number 3, sir, you were doing so well.
But you said games that play best with 5. So, okay, I'll give you this one, maybe someone. But I have other people in my corner on this. But I understand your debate, but I think we need to move on here before I get myself in too much trouble.
Well, it may be too late. Let's go.
Someday I'd like to play this, but I'm afraid the paparazzi is going to take a bunch of shots of me doing so. Sounds like that happens.
Number 2.
Number 2 is Power Grid, which showed up on Tony's list. The reason I like Power Grid at 5, there are 4 resources in the game. You've got the oil, you've got the coal, you've got the trash, and you've got the uranium. And it's possible with playing with fewer players that each player can sort of reach out and get plants that fit that particular resource and sort of monopolize the use of that resource. But if you add that fifth player, someone is going to be competing for those resources, which can really mess with the market. And so you're going to have a lot more jockeying and switching of resources and plants. And well, I'll work with you on this one. This is getting too expensive. Let's move over here. And it really makes that resource market shine when you've got 5 players messing around with it. That's why Power Grid is my number 2.
Now, for me, I work in the power industry, and I know you gentlemen probably don't realize this, but I use this game to actually teach the economic dispatch of our power plants and how it all works.
What?
I'm not kidding you.
Really?
Yes.
I feel like it's a joke.
No, I'm not joking. This is one of those games that when we are playing this, I can completely get across to the young engineers and our interns that, hey, when we are dispatching the plants or we are moving power across the grid, that this is how it works and how you can do economic dispatch and be efficient with the plants. And I have found that when I do it with smaller groups, that I don't get that teaching emphasis that I do with 5 players. So that's why I've learned that Power Grid with 5 is just so good.
I still think you're joking.
It is part of their summer thing where I pull them aside and we have a Power Grid so that they can visualize it. So once again,
you are just doing it to play more Power Grid.
Don't tell anybody.
Say that.
Don't tell anybody at work. Okay.
Educational experience. It's necessary.
All right, my number 2 is El Grande for obvious reasons, because it's amazing with 5. Area control game. It's good with 3. It's good with 4. It is my favorite, I think, with 5, because the more people fighting for territories, the more fun the game is. El Grande, my number 2.
Exactly what Tom just said. You've got a lot more shifting alliances. There's either 2 or 3 scoring slots in each territory. And so there's a lot of room for shifting alliances when you're playing with all 5 in El Grande.
My number 2 was also Tom's number 9, and that is Puerto Rico. And the reason why I said it plays so well with 5 is because of the role selection. I feel at 5 that you are getting the full complement of those roles as they come out. Lower numbers, you tend to leave more on the board, and you end up not getting what you really need. I like the aspect of the 5 players. But let me tell you, here's an expert's opinion.
I think he's talking to you, Eric.
I'm talking to you, dude.
Oh, yeah, no, I love Power. I love Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is a great game, but it is one of those games when we have 5 players, I'm like, hey, let's play Puerto Rico because that's perfect with 5. And you get all the roles, and it goes around the table, and you can stuff other people out of getting stuff. It just runs very smoothly. It was, there's a lot of these Euro games at this level. When they get to 5, it's like, oh, no. This one, I'm like, if we have 4, I'm like, can we find a 5th player? Because it will make Puerto Rico better. So, yes, I agree.
This made my short list as well. This was close. I'm not sure where it would have fallen, but it was one I considered. I just went for the action selection of Roll for the Galaxy over Puerto Rico, but still an excellent selection.
Well, I don't know. What am I supposed to feel here, Tom, that Eric has, said we did good?
Pride?
Okay, pride. I've got pride here. Okay.
A real sense of accomplishment? I don't know.
Super humble. Okay, let's go on to number 1.
And finally, number 1.
Number 1 is the co-op dice roller Pandemic the Cure. This one, well, regular Pandemic sort of strains a little bit at 5. It works, but it sort of has to stretch a little bit. Pandemic the Cure works with 5. It's good to get more rolls in there, more special abilities, more coverage on the board dealing with the different dice. I really, the setup time is super fast. It really works well with 5. Pandemic the Cure, my number 1.
I know you're waiting for us to argue with you, but we just accepted the fact that you're going to say Pandemic somehow on lists.
I'm glad he put it on there because I was very ashamed that I did not put a Pandemic on my side. So, Eric, thank you for doing that and recognizing the incredibleness of Pandemic the Cure. It doesn't drag at 5 either, does it?
No, I don't think so.
All right, my number 2 is Kemet because Kemet is amazing. Kemet is like a game that rises from the oceans and helps children go to school. That's how wonderful it is. It is
What?
a fantastic game. That was a really bad analogy.
What?
Let me go. Let me run with this.
I'm writing down that quote right now.
Well, and then he also stated that this is his number 2 when he meant his number 1. But keep going, Tom. This is your show.
That quote's going on the box.
Oh, is it my number 1? It was number 2 of the number 1 slot. You're right. But no, Kemet plays well with all numbered players, but I like it best with 5 because there's that many more people to attack. And there's, again, that whole 2 versus 2 thing does not happen. The 5-player board is great. There's so much going on. It just makes me, I'm so happy. I don't actually have Kemet right now because it's still at Dice Tower Con. But I'm going to get it back eventually. I just love that game. Should have played it at Dice Tower Con. That's how good it is. 5 players. Do it.
It might take you a while to get it back because it's busy rising from the ocean and helping little children go to school.
What?
It's very busy. That's a full schedule.
Oh, I see. I mean, I know you made Mr. Smith very happy by putting Kemet number 1. It is so good. Such a great game.
That's right. That's his number 1 game of all time, even though he doesn't like to say that because he doesn't like to say that he likes any games at all, but he does.
He loves that game. And if you say, would you like to play, and you start with a K, he assumes Kemet and it's already set up before you even can get out a full name. Just how I am. That's just.
I'm going to attempt that someday.
Give it a try. My number 1 is an oldie but a goodie that is destined for a remake, and that is Pillars of the Earth plus the hard-finding, sought-after expansion. Now, Pillars of the Earth is one of my all-time favorite worker placement games. The mechanism of pulling from the bag, but playing it at 5 and putting that expansion board and being able to split out some of those cards, I just love that game at 5. Works great at 4. Oh, who am I kidding? Pillars of the Earth works good at any number, but for me, I'll play it at 5, and I think it works really best.
I just realized that's the end of the list.
It is.
So yes. So that is great. And I actually, man, you guys did a good job, mostly.
Wow. Praise.
I know. Well, I give out a lot of garbage. I mean, I don't know about Buffy, but I haven't played it, and Strike shouldn't have been on the list. But still, it was a good list overall. Maybe better than my own even, except you guys should have had Kemet. And Eric, I don't think has still played Kemet.
No.
Which is bothersome.
I would have put Kemet on there if I've played it at 5. I've only played it up to 4, so I had no way of measuring that. But once again, sir, I trust your judgment.
I'm not used to being this kowtow to. All right, let's see what the people said. The people said number 10, Dixit. That works. I thought I liked Dixit best with the full combo.
Yeah, I like
6
it 6.
If you can get it. 9, Small World. And I considered Small World, but I think I like it equally as well, playing with 3 and 4. 8, Cosmic Encounter, which is great at 5, but even better at 6. Mysterium, I think 5's the max, right?
Yeah, with 1 ghost and 4 investigators.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, the same reason I said for Fury of Dracula, which is the People's Choice number 6, Fury of Dracula. Number 5, Battlestar Galactica. I don't know if I agree on this one, though. I think 5 might be my least favorite number. Is that the one where you have like the person who, the person who
the sympathizer? Isn't that at 6?
That might be at 6. I might be wrong. It's been a while.
Yeah,
since
5 might be when it's clean.
That's right. And if that's true, then 5 is right.
Yeah, okay.
4, King of Tokyo. This one I'm cool with whatever the number of players is.
Yeah,
I don't care if it's 4, 5, 6. 3, Sheriff of Nottingham. 2, Power Grid. This is by all the students that were taught by
probably.
Tony.
He's got a legion.
And number 1, 7 Wonders. And somehow the people did not shoehorn Pandemic on this list, even though Eric did.
I object to shoehorn.
If the shoe fits, wear it.
I will.
I believe I used that correctly. Oh, man. It's been a show. Well, folks, I think we got to end here. That's been a long one. But we really want to thank you, Tony, for coming on board and taking interesting questions and weird quotes.
I appreciate you inviting me, and I hope someday that in another 1.5 to 3 years, because we'll be around, Rolling Dice will be around as long as y'all are. So we look forward to any opportunity to get on and irritate you to the best of our ability.
Oh, well, that's nice. Why does everyone want to irritate us?
Irritate
I feel like this is like a common theme.
Wow.
Well, anytime I get a chance to sing the incredibleness of Strike, I'm going to be there.
I'm going to, okay, so if this ever happens again, I'm going to take you up the list and be like, okay, there's no way Strike can get on this list. It'll be like, best games without dice.
Well, how are you going to get rid of Pandemic?
I don't know. I'm still working on that. But I like Pandemic, but it's getting ridiculous at this point. Well, what's your favorite competitive game? Pandemic. Because you can play it with the terrorists. Oh, get out of here. All right. Well, let's end this thing. Until next time, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Eric Summerer.
And I'm Tony McRee.
And you've been listening to The Dice Tower.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 514, was recorded on July 13th, 2017. Coming up next week, it's our live show from Origins, including another wacky game show. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out more about the fund's mission and how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with production assistance from Itai Perez, Derek Porter, and Rob Searing. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Manhattan Head Parasites brought to you by New York's Lice. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. Email us at Dicetower@gmail.com or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including Board Gamers Anonymous, Board Game Corner, the Push Your Luck Podcast, Rolling Dice and Taking Names, the Geek All-Stars, Dukes of Dice, Our Turn, and Board Game Breakfast at Dicetowernetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. So what other ridiculous claims can we make for a board game? If Kemet climbs out of the sea and helps children learn to go to school, how about it's so good it turns lead into gold?
Oh, it's so good. It's repaired broken marriages, cured cancer, and comes out of the sky like an avenging angel.
It's a floor polish and a dessert topping.
Kemet is as good as a piece of pie.
Ooh. Oh, he won.
Yep.
He won. It's over.
Always win with pie. Always bet on pie.